The cafeteria at Galactic Youth Academy was packed like always. Students from about 40 different alien species crowded around floating tables, eating their meals and chatting in a dozen different languages. The translation devices everyone wore made it possible to understand each other, even though half the species there didn't even have mouths the way humans did. Riley grabbed his tray and looked for somewhere to sit. He'd only been at this school for 3 months, and honestly, he still felt like the weird kid. Which made sense, because he was literally the only human in a school of 500 aliens. Back on Earth, when he'd applied for the exchange program, it seemed like an adventure. Now he just wanted to find a quiet corner and eat his synthetic protein cube in peace. But then he heard the whispers. That weird kind of silence that happens when everyone's trying not to stare at something while totally staring at it. Riley turned to see what was going on. In the center courtyard, visible through the massive glass walls, a crowd was forming. Must have been at least 50 students standing in a circle, all holding up their communication devices. Recording something. His curiosity got the better of him. Riley dumped his tray and pushed through the cafeteria doors into the courtyard. The afternoon sun of Nexus Station's artificial sky made everything bright and warm. Riley squeezed past a group of tall, reptilian Thexians who were holding their devices up high to get a better angle. That's when he saw her. Kthessa sat alone on one of the curved benches. She was Velkari, one of the insectoid species that looked kind of like a praying mantis mixed with living crystal. Her whole body was made of this translucent, angular material that caught the light and threw off colors. Right now, those colors were all wrong. Riley had sat next to Kthessa in xenobiology class for the past month. Usually, her crystalline shell glowed with soft greens and blues. Calm colors. Happy colors, he'd learned. But now? Now her shell was flickering between dark purple and muddy gray, pulsing like a broken light. The colors rippled across her body in waves. Her 4 arms were wrapped around herself, and her head was bowed down. She was crying. Riley didn't need to understand Velkari biology to recognize that. Around her, students just watched. Some were whispering to each other, their translators creating a low buzz of overlapping voices. A few Thexians were actually narrating what they were seeing, like she was some kind of specimen. Fascinating display of Velkari emotional distress, one of them hissed into his device. Note the chromatic shift patterns indicating severe psychological discomfort. Riley felt something twist in his stomach. This was wrong. Really wrong. He looked around at all the faces, all the species. Reptilian Thexians with their cold eyes. Floating Zephrani that looked like living clouds of gas. Chunky, rock-like Morphians. Furry Quellans with their big ears. Every single one of them was just standing there. Nobody was helping her. Riley didn't overthink it. He just walked forward, pushing past a group of students who chittered in surprise. The crowd parted as he moved through them, and he could feel dozens of eyes following him. He sat down on the bench next to Kthessa. Close, but not touching. He'd learned that much about alien customs at least. "Hey," he said quietly. "Kthessa? You okay?" Her shell flashed bright white for a second. The Velkari equivalent of gasping in shock. Her large, multifaceted eyes turned toward him, and even though her face couldn't make human expressions, he could read the surprise there. "Riley," her translator spoke in that slightly mechanical voice. "You should not. This is not. I am acceptable." Her words came out broken, glitching through whatever emotional state she was in. The crowd had gone completely silent now. Riley could feel them watching, recording. Every alien species had different rules about personal space and emotional displays, he knew that. He was probably breaking about 10 of them right now. But he didn't care. "You don't look acceptable," Riley said, keeping his voice gentle. "What happened?" Kthessa's shell flickered again, purple and gray swirling together. Her translator was quiet for a long moment. Then, "My brood sister. There was an accident at the industrial complex. She has passed from this existence." Riley's chest tightened. Her sister died. And she was sitting here alone while everyone filmed her like she was entertainment. He noticed something else too. Kthessa's shell felt cold. Not just cool, but actually cold, like touching glass that had been left in a freezer. He remembered something from their xenobiology class. Professor Helt had mentioned that Velkari were partially temperature dependent. Their emotions were regulated through thermal exchange or something like that. Riley didn't fully understand the science. But he understood that Kthessa was hurting and cold and alone. He did something crazy. Something that made the entire crowd take a collective step back. He opened his arms. "Come here." Kthessa's shell went white again. Her translator made a sound like a computer error. I do not. That is not. Physical contact during grief is forbidden among non-brood members in Velkari culture. I'm not Velkari, Riley said simply. I'm human. And humans don't let their friends hurt alone. For about 5 seconds, nothing happened. The world seemed to hold its breath. Somewhere in the crowd, someone's device beeped as it saved a recording. Then Kthessa leaned forward, awkward and uncertain, and Riley wrapped his arms around her crystalline form. She was all angles and hard edges, nothing like hugging another human. But he could feel her trembling. Could feel how cold she was. His body heat started seeping into her shell. Slowly, gradually, the dark purple began to shift. Little threads of blue appeared, spreading through the gray like cracks in ice. She was teaching younglings, Kthessa whispered, her voice breaking through the translator. She wanted to inspire them. And now she is gone. I'm so sorry, Riley said. He didn't know what else to say. So he just held her, letting his warmth steady her, letting his presence say what words couldn't. They stayed like that for 2 minutes. Maybe less. But those 2 minutes changed everything. Because every single second was recorded, uploaded, and about to spread across the entire galaxy. Riley didn't think much about the hug after it happened. He made sure Kthessa was okay, walked her to her next class, and then headed to his own advanced physics lecture. Just a normal day, he thought. He'd helped a friend. That was it. He had no idea what was coming. By dinner time, his communicator started buzzing. Then it didn't stop. The first message was from his roommate, a Quellan named Petra who looked like a giant, furry otter. Dude. You're everywhere right now. Riley frowned at his screen. What are you talking about? 3 seconds later, his device lit up with a video link. The title made his stomach drop, Human Student Breaks Protocol to Physically Comfort Grieving Alien. He clicked it. There he was, clear as day, walking through the crowd and sitting next to Kthessa. The video had been edited with multiple angles, all from different students who'd been recording. You could see everything. Him sitting down. Offering the hug. Kthessa's shell changing colors as she accepted. The view counter at the bottom was climbing fast. 2 million views. 3 million. 4 million. Oh no, Riley muttered. The comments section was completely insane. Thousands of posts in dozens of languages, all being auto-translated by his device. What is this human doing? Physical contact during emotional distress violates 7 different cultural protocols. That one was from a Thesyan student. Primitive behavior, but the results are undeniable. Notice the chromatic shift in the Velkari's emotional display. Someone trying to sound scientific. Why would touching help? This makes no logical sense. A Zephrani, probably. They were pure energy beings who didn't understand physical contact at all. But then Riley saw other comments. Different ones. I wish someone had done this for me when my spawn mate died. I processed grief alone for 6 cycles. Anonymous Quellan. Humans are strange. But maybe strange is what we need. Unknown species. This human showed more kindness in 2 minutes than I've experienced in 4 years at this academy. Another anonymous post. Riley's communicator buzzed again. This time it was an official message. His heart sank as he read it. Riley Hayes, please report to Director Voss's office at 0800 hours tomorrow morning. Mandatory attendance. Great. He was in trouble. That night, Riley couldn't sleep. He kept checking the video. By midnight, it had 50 million views. 50 million. Students from every corner of the galaxy were watching him hug Kthessa. News sites were picking it up. Academic journals were requesting interviews. Xenopsychologists were writing analysis papers. One article title read, The Human Empathy Paradox, How Earth's Most Primitive Species Displays Advanced Emotional Intelligence. Riley wanted to crawl under his bed and hide. The next morning, he walked to the administration building with his stomach in knots. The hallways seemed longer than usual. Other students stared at him as he passed. Some nodded. Others looked away quickly. A Morphean student actually backed into a wall to avoid him. Director Voss's office was on the top floor, with windows overlooking the entire station. Riley had only been here once before, during orientation. The director was a Corthian, amphibious and massive, with smooth skin that shifted between blue and green. His eyes were huge and unblinking, which made conversations with him deeply uncomfortable. Sit, Voss said, his voice coming out in a wet rumble that the translator converted to flat, emotionless words. Riley Saturday. The chair was designed for Corthians and way too big for him. His feet barely touched the floor. Voss pulled up a holographic display. The video. Of course it was the video. He played it without sound, just watching Riley hug Thessa over and over again. Mr. Hayes, Voss said finally. Do you understand what you did? I helped a friend who was hurting, Riley said, trying to keep his voice steady. You violated the Non-Contact Accord, Section 7, Paragraph 3. You breached cultural boundaries established by the Velkari Diplomatic Council. You ignored Academy protocol regarding interspecies physical interaction during emotional distress. Voss listed each one like he was reading charges at a trial. Riley felt his face get hot. She was crying. Everyone was just standing there, filming her like she was some kind of show. That's wrong. I don't care what the protocols say. Voss's eyes didn't blink. They never blinked. It was creepy. Thessa has submitted a formal statement, Voss said, pulling up another document. She requests that no disciplinary action be taken against you. She states, and I quote, Riley's actions, while culturally inappropriate by Velkari standards, provided comfort during my most difficult moment. He demonstrated a form of compassion I did not know was possible. Riley blinked. He hadn't expected that. However, Voss continued, rules exist for reasons, Mr. Hayes. This academy hosts students from 43 different species. Each has their own customs, boundaries, and social structures. If everyone simply did what felt right to them personally, we would have chaos. With respect, sir, Riley said carefully, I think we already have chaos. We have students suffering alone because everyone's too afraid to break the rules. That's not order. That's just organized cruelty. Voss was quiet for a long moment. His skin shifted more toward blue. Riley had no idea what that meant. You will receive a formal warning, Voss said finally. This will be placed in your academic record. You are to attend a mandatory seminar on interspecies cultural sensitivity. And you will write a 5,000-word essay on the importance of diplomatic protocols. Riley nodded. He could live with that. However, Voss added, and something in his tone changed slightly, I am also forwarding your case to the Academy Ethics Board. Not for additional punishment. But because 17 planetary education boards have contacted us in the last 12 hours. They are asking questions about human emotional support behaviors. They want to understand why this worked. Riley's eyes widened. 17. Your video has been viewed 200 million times, Mr. Hayes. Xenopsychologists across the galaxy are analyzing it. Some are calling it a breakthrough in cross-species empathy research. Others are calling it dangerous cultural contamination. Voss leaned forward, his massive form blocking out the window light. Either way, you have started something. Whether that something is good or bad remains to be seen. Riley left the office feeling dizzy. 200 million views. People across the galaxy were watching him hug Thessa and trying to figure out what it meant. His communicator buzzed constantly as he walked back to his dorm. Messages from students he'd never met. Questions about humans. Questions about Earth. Questions about why he'd done what he did. One message stood out. It was from Tessa, a quiet Quellan student from his mathematics class. They'd never really talked before. Can we meet? The message said. I need to ask you something important. About what you did. About helping others. Riley stared at the message for a long time. Then he typed back, sure. Library. 20 minutes. He had no idea what he was starting. But something told him this was just the beginning. Tessa was waiting at a corner table in the library when Riley arrived. She looked nervous, her large Quellan ears twitching constantly, her furry hands fidgeting with her datapad. The library was mostly empty at this hour, just a few students scattered around studying. Riley sat down across from her. Hey. What's up? Tessa's ears flattened against her head. In Quellan body language, that meant she was scared or embarrassed. Riley had learned that much from the cultural sensitivity courses all exchange students had to take. I saw your video, she said quietly. The one with Thessa. Yeah, Riley sighed. Everyone's seen it apparently. When you hugged her, when you just sat there and listened. Tessa's voice cracked slightly. My father died last term. Heart failure during a mining accident. I cried in my room for 8 days straight. I went to classes and students walked past me. They saw me struggling. No one stopped. No one asked if I was okay. That's just how things are done. Riley felt that familiar twist in his stomach. I'm really sorry. That shouldn't have happened. But it's normal, Tessa said, looking up at him with those big, dark eyes. In Quellan culture, in most cultures here, personal grief is personal. You deal with it alone or with family. Outsiders don't interfere. But watching your video, I kept thinking, what if someone had just sat with me? What if I didn't have to be alone? She leaned forward. Can you teach me? How to do what you did? How to help someone who's hurting? Riley blinked. I don't know if I can teach that. I just saw someone in pain and tried to help. But that's exactly it, Tessa insisted. Most of us can't see past the protocols. We're taught from birth that there are rules for everything. You humans seem to just ignore the rules when they don't make sense. Riley thought about that. I guess we do. But it gets us in trouble a lot. Maybe trouble is worth it, Tessa said. That conversation stuck with Riley for days. He kept thinking about what Tessa said. About students suffering alone because everyone was too scared to break the rules. So he did something kind of crazy. He posted a message on the Academy student network, interested in learning about emotional support and helping others? Meeting Tuesday at 1800 hours, classroom 7B. All species welcome. He expected maybe 3 or 4 students to show up. Instead, he got 12. Tessa was there, her shell glowing a supportive amber color. Tessa came, sitting in the front row. There was Brett, a human exchange student from the engineering program who Riley barely knew. A Morphean student named Vex who looked like a walking mushroom and communicated through bioluminescent pulses. 2 Thexians, surprisingly. A few others from species Riley was still learning about. They all sat in a circle, looking at each other awkwardly. Okay, Riley started, feeling way out of his depth. So, thanks for coming. I'm not an expert or anything. I just thought maybe we could talk about helping each other when things get hard. One of the Thexians, a female named SYX, raised her clawed hand. Why should we prioritize individual emotional states? My species values collective efficiency. Personal struggles are meant to be overcome privately. Right, but here's the thing, Riley said, trying to organize his thoughts. If everyone in the collective is secretly struggling and pretending they are fine, is the collective actually strong? Or is it just a bunch of hurt people pretending? SYX's reptilian eyes blinked slowly. She didn't respond, but she didn't leave either. Tessa spoke up, her translator converting her clicks into words. When Riley helped me, I was certain I wanted to be alone. That's what my culture taught me. But his presence, his warmth, it stabilized my emotional regulation in a way our traditional methods cannot. Sometimes what we think we want and what we actually need are different. Vex pulsed with blue light, which his translator converted to speech. But how do we know when to help? How do we read distress signals across species? Your colors mean nothing to me. My bioluminescence means nothing to you. That was actually a really good question. Riley hadn't thought about that. Maybe we teach each other, Tessa suggested. Tessa can explain Velkari emotional displays. I can explain Quellan body language. We can build a kind of universal guide. And that's exactly what they did. For the next hour, they went around the circle. Tessa explained that dark purple meant grief, red meant anger, white meant shock. Tessa showed how Quellan ears moved with different emotions. The Thexians explained that their tail positions indicated stress levels. Vex demonstrated different bioluminescent patterns. Riley talked about human signs of distress. Crying, obviously. But also withdrawal, changes in behavior, forced smiles that didn't reach the eyes. Brett, the other human, added more. Sometimes people joke more when they are hurting. Like they're trying to convince everyone including themselves that they are fine. By the end of that first meeting, Riley felt like they'd actually accomplished something. They'd started building a bridge between species, a common language for recognizing pain. Same time next week? Riley asked as everyone started packing up. They all agreed. Even SYX, the skeptical Vizian. Word spread fast. The next week, 20 students showed up. The week after that, 35. Riley had to request a bigger classroom. They started practicing actual techniques. Active listening, which meant really hearing what someone said instead of just waiting for your turn to talk. Offering presence without demanding anything in return. Recognizing when someone needed space versus when they needed company. Tessa became co-leader of the group, her unique perspective helping bridge the gap between human intuition and alien logic. She was good at explaining things in ways that made sense to non-human minds. But not everyone was happy about what they were doing. Riley started noticing a group of students gathering outside their meetings. They held up signs with translated messages. Tradition matters. Respect cultural boundaries. Stop human interference. The leader was a Vizian named Drax, bigger and more aggressive than SYX. He had scars across his scales and eyes that looked cold even by Vizian standards. One day after a session, Drax blocked Riley's path in the hallway. "You're contaminating our ways," Drax hissed, his forked tongue flicking out. "Millions of years of evolution created our social structures. And you humans think you know better after 3 months." Riley kept his voice calm even though his heart was racing. Drax was twice his size and had claws that could definitely do damage. "I'm not trying to replace anyone's culture. I'm just offering an alternative for students who are struggling." "Struggling makes you stronger," Drax said. "Your coddling makes them weak." "Or maybe," Riley countered, "your way just makes people better at hiding their pain. That's not strength. That's just loneliness with better PR." Drax's tail lashed behind him, smacking against the wall. Other students in the hallway stopped to watch. This was the kind of confrontation that could turn physical fast. But Kthessa stepped between them, her shell flashing a warning red. "Drax. Walk away." For a moment, nobody moved. Then Drax snorted, a sound like steam escaping. "This isn't over." He turned and stalked off, his followers trailing behind him. Riley let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. "Thanks." "He's not wrong about one thing," Kthessa said quietly. "We are changing things. Change always faces resistance." That night, Riley lay in his bunk staring at the ceiling. Petra was already asleep, snoring those weird Quellan snores that sounded like a broken air filter. Riley's communicator sat on his chest, still buzzing with messages. More students wanting to join the group. Some thanking him. Others threatening him. He thought about Earth, about his mom's advice before he left. "Don't try to change the galaxy, sweetheart. Just try to survive it." But maybe surviving wasn't enough. Maybe sometimes you had to push back against the way things were, even when it was scary, even when people like Drax wanted to stop you. Riley closed his eyes. 3 weeks until exam period. He had a feeling things were going to get a lot more complicated before they got better. He had no idea how right he was. Exam week hit the academy like a storm. The entire station seemed to vibrate with stress. Students who normally socialized in the courtyards now hunched over data pads in corners, memoizing formulas and historical dates. The cafeteria got quieter. The library stayed open 24 hours and was packed every single one of them. Riley was surviving on about 4 hours of sleep and way too much caffeine. Astrophysics was kicking his butt. He'd spent the last 3 nights reviewing orbital mechanics until the numbers blurred together on his screen. The morning of his astrophysics final, Riley stumbled into the exam hall looking like he'd been hit by a transport shuttle. Rows of desks stretched across the massive room, each one equipped with a testing terminal. Students from every species filed in, finding their assigned seats. Riley found his spot 3 rows from the front. He sat down, activated his terminal, and tried to remember literally anything he'd studied. His brain felt like mud. 2 rows ahead and to the left, he spotted Jason. The Drazian student had bronze feathers that usually caught the light in cool ways, making him look almost metallic. Draxians were bird-like, with wings they kept folded against their backs and sharp, intelligent eyes. Riley had worked with Jason on a group project last month. He was a good guy, really smart, but super anxious about everything. He always triple-checked his work and apologized constantly even when he hadn't done anything wrong. The proctor, a stern Korthian named Professor Holt, began reading the exam rules in that wet, gurgling voice all Korthians had. "You have 2 standard hours. No communication devices. No reference materials. Academic dishonesty will result in immediate expulsion. Begin." The room filled with the soft sounds of students working. Clicking claws on keyboards. The rustle of wings. The hum of translation devices. Riley dove into the first problem. Calculate the orbital decay of a satellite around a gas giant with 3 moons. Okay, he knew this. Probably. Maybe. 15 minutes in, he heard something. A weird chirping sound, high-pitched and fast. Riley looked up. Jason's wings were trembling. Not just moving, but shaking violently like he was freezing. His feathered head kept darting around, his eyes wide and unfocused. The chirping got louder, more frantic. Other students started noticing. A few looked over with curiosity. Most ignored it and kept working. Riley watched as Jason's clawed hands hovered over his keyboard but didn't type anything. His breathing was coming in these rapid, shallow gasps. His bronze feathers had lost their shine and looked dull, almost gray. Professor Holt noticed too. The massive Corthian moved down the aisle with surprising grace. "Student Jason. Is there a problem?" Jason tried to speak, but only that frantic chirping came out. His translator couldn't keep up with whatever was happening. His whole body was shaking now. "Student Jason, you need to exit the examination hall," Holt said, not unkindly but firmly. "Standard protocol. You may reschedule for the makeup exam next week." But Jason wasn't moving. He seemed frozen, his claws gripping the edge of his desk so hard Riley could hear the material creaking. His wings had spread slightly, an involuntary stress response. Holt reached for Jason's arm to escort him out. That's when Riley understood what was happening. Jason was having a panic attack. A bad one. Riley had seen this before. His cousin Tyler used to get them in high school. That same look of absolute terror. The hyperventilating. The complete inability to function. If Jason left now, he'd fail the exam. And from what Riley knew about Drazian culture, academic failure brought serious shame to your entire family. Jason would be devastated. Riley stood up. His chair scraped loudly against the floor. "Mr. Riley, sit down," Holt commanded. "You are in the middle of an examination." Riley ignored him. He walked straight to Jason's desk. Around them, students looked up from their exams, watching. Some reached for their communication devices before remembering they'd been collected. "Jason," Riley said quietly, kneeling beside the desk so they were at eye level. "Hey, buddy. Look at me." Jason's eyes were wild, darting everywhere. His pupils were contracted to tiny points. "I can't," Jason's translator finally managed to convert his chirps. "I can't do this. I studied but I can't remember anything. My family. They'll be so disappointed. I can't breathe. I can't." "Yes, you can," Riley said calmly. "You're having a panic attack. It feels terrible but it's not dangerous. You're safe." "Mr. Riley, return to your seat immediately," Holt boomed. Riley didn't move. "Jason, breathe with me. Watch my chest. In for 4 counts." Riley breathed in slowly, exaggerating the movement so Jason could see it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Jason tried to follow but his breathing was too erratic. "Hold for 4, Riley continued, holding his breath. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's when Kthessa stood up from her seat on the other side of the room. Her shell flashed a supportive amber as she walked over. She didn't say anything, just stood next to Jason, her presence solid and calm. Then Tessa stood. The Quellan student walked over with her ears in that gentle, forward position that meant comfort and support. She stood on Jason's other side. Professor Holt started to intervene, but the door to the exam hall opened. Director Voss entered, drawn by the commotion. His massive Corthian form filled the doorway. He held up one webbed hand. "Wait." Vex joined them next, his bioluminescence pulsing in slow, calming rhythms. Then Brett, the other human. Then SYX, the Vizian who'd been skeptical at first but had become one of their most dedicated members. 6 students surrounded Jason's desk now. Not touching him, respecting his space, but present. Solid. "There. Breathe out for 4, Riley said softly. 1, 2, 3, 4. This time Jason managed it. A shaky exhale, but he did it. "Good," Riley encouraged. "Again. In for 4. They breathed together. All 6 of them, their chests rising and falling in rhythm. Around them, the exam hall had gone completely silent. Even the students still taking their tests had stopped to watch. For 5 minutes, they just breathed. Slowly, gradually, Jason's shaking decreased. His wings settled back against his body. His feathers started to regain some of their shine. His breathing normalized. His eyes focused. He looked at Riley, then at the others around him. Jason's translator spoke clearly now. "I think I can continue." Riley smiled. "You've got this. We're all rooting for you." The 6 students returned to their seats. Professor Holt stood there looking stunned, like he'd just witnessed something he couldn't quite process. Jason turned back to his terminal. His claws, steady now, began typing. Riley sat down at his own desk, his heart pounding. He'd just blown off 15 minutes of his exam. He was definitely going to hear about this later. But when he looked at his screen, the astrophysics problems didn't seem so impossible anymore. He had an hour and 45 minutes left. That was enough. He started working, and around him, the exam hall slowly returned to normal. Students went back to their tests. Professor Holt returned to his desk at the front, still looking bewildered. Only Director Voss remained in the doorway, watching. His skin had shifted to a deep blue color. Riley had no idea what that meant, but something in the director's posture had changed. 2 hours later, Riley submitted his exam. Jason submitted his too, walking out with his head held high instead of in shame. Riley had no idea that half a dozen students had secretly recorded what happened. That by dinner time, another video would be spreading across the galaxy. This one titled, "Human Students Violate Exam Protocol to Save Drexian's Academic Future." The revolution was growing. And there was no stopping it now. The video of Jason's panic attack spread even faster than the first one with Cthesa. Within 6 hours, it had 50 million views. Within 12 hours, 100 million. News outlets across the galaxy picked it up. Academic journals published emergency articles. Planetary education boards called emergency sessions. This time, the comments were different. This human stopped his own exam to help another student. That's not just compassion. That's sacrifice. 6 students risked academic consequences to support one individual. We need to study this behavior. My son experienced similar distress last year. He was removed from the exam and failed. No one helped him. Why don't we have this? Riley spent the next 2 days expecting to be expelled. Instead, he got summoned to another meeting with Director Voss, but this time the entire faculty council was there. 12 aliens from different species, all staring at him like he was some kind of experiment. Director Voss didn't waste time. "Mr. Riley. In 2 weeks, you have violated Academy Protocol twice. Both incidents have caused galactic-level discussions about our educational systems. The Interspecies Education Council has contacted us 17 times in the past 48 hours. They want answers." Riley swallowed hard. "I'm sorry, sir. I just couldn't watch Jason fail when I knew I could help." "That's exactly the problem," said Professor Holt, the Corthian who'd proctored the exam. "You couldn't watch. Most species can watch. It's how we maintain order and fairness. But humans seem constitutionally incapable of ignoring distress, even when protocols demand it." "Is that really a problem though?" Riley asked, finding his courage. Jason passed his exam. He's not carrying that shame. His family's proud of him. How is that worse than following protocol? A Thesian professor named Dr. Vextor leaned forward. "Because protocols exist for reasons, young human. They create predictable systems. They prevent chaos. If everyone simply did what felt right, our institutions would collapse." "With respect, Dr. Vextor," Riley said carefully, "I think some of your institutions need to collapse. Or at least change. Because right now, your system protects rules more than it protects students." The room went silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Then Voss did something unexpected. His skin shifted to a light green color, and his mouth parts curved slightly. Riley had learned enough about Corthians by now to recognize that as approval. "The council has reached a decision," Voss announced. "We are implementing a pilot program. Peer emotional support training. Mr. Riley, along with student Cthesa, will design a curriculum that respects cultural boundaries while providing assistance to students in crisis." Riley blinked. "Wait, what? You're actually going to make this official?" "We don't have a choice," Professor Holt admitted, sounding annoyed about it. 73 schools across the galaxy have contacted us asking for information about your support group. 15 planetary governments want to study human empathy protocols. And most importantly, our own student body has submitted a petition with 847 signatures demanding we formalize these practices. Riley's jaw dropped. 847? There's only 500 students at this academy. Alumni signed it too, Voss explained. Former students who wished this had existed when they attended. You've touched something deep, Mr. Riley. A need that apparently spans species and cultures. A need we didn't even know existed. 2 weeks later, Riley stood on a stage in the academy's main auditorium. Every seat was filled. Students packed the aisles. Some watched via holographic feeds from their dorm rooms. His hands were sweating. Public speaking terrified him way more than violating protocols apparently. Cthesa stood beside him, her shell glowing a confident blue-green. On his other side was Jason, who'd volunteered to speak about his experience. Cthesa went first. Her translator projected her words across the massive space. When my brute sister died, I experienced the traditional Velkari grief process. Isolation. Internal processing. Color-based emotional regulation. I believed this was the only way. The correct way. She paused, her shell shifting through several colors. Then Riley sat beside me. He offered physical comfort, which my culture considers inappropriate. He violated our protocols. And I am grateful he did. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some disapproving. Some curious. He showed me that accepting help is not weakness, Thessa continued. That connection during pain can heal in ways solitude cannot. My brute sister is still gone. That pain remains. But I did not have to carry it alone. That made all the difference. Jason spoke next, his bronze feathers catching the stage lights. I studied for my astrophysics exam for 6 weeks. I knew the material. But when I sat down at that terminal, my mind went blank. My body betrayed me. In Drazian culture, this would mean I was weak. Unworthy. A shame to my family. His wings rustled as he shifted his weight. Riley stopped his own exam to help me breathe. 5 others joined him. They risked their grades, their standings, everything, for me. Because of them, I passed. Because of them, I'm still here. That's not weakness. That's the strongest thing I've ever witnessed. Then it was Riley's turn. He stepped up to the microphone, looking out at hundreds of faces from dozens of species. I'm not special, Riley started, his voice shaky. I'm just a human who couldn't watch people suffer alone. On Earth, we have problems. Lots of them. We fight wars. We hurt each other. We mess up constantly. But we also have this thing where we can't just walk past someone who's hurting. It's like a glitch in our programming or something. A few students laughed. That helped his nerves a bit. Every species here is smarter than humans, Riley continued. You've got better technology, longer lifespans, cooler abilities. Thexians can see in spectrums we can't imagine. Zephrani don't even need physical bodies. Velkari can communicate through color. Compared to you, humans are basically primitive. He took a breath. But maybe being primitive means we haven't learned to ignore our instincts yet. When we see pain, we move toward it instead of away from it. When we see someone alone, we sit with them. When protocols say walk away and our hearts say stay, we stay. Maybe that's not a weakness. Maybe that's our strength. The auditorium was completely silent now. I'm not asking anyone to abandon their culture, Riley said. I'm just saying maybe there's room for something new. Something that works across all our differences. Because pain is universal. Loneliness is universal. And maybe, just maybe, compassion can be universal too. He stepped back from the microphone. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Thessa started making a clicking sound, which her species did to show approval. Tessa joined with a high-pitched whistle. Then more sounds from more species, creating this bizarre symphony of alien appreciation. And then, slowly, it turned into what Riley recognized as applause. Not just from one species, but from all of them, each showing approval in their own way. Director Voss took the stage. The Academy will now vote on formalizing the peer support program. All students, use your devices to cast your vote. Yes or no? Riley watched the holographic display as votes came in. The numbers climbed. 400. 500. 600. Final tally, 847 yes. 213 no. The program passed. Voss's skin turned that approving green again. Effective immediately, Nexus Academy will offer voluntary peer support training. Students from all species are welcome to participate. Mr. Riley and student Thessa will oversee the program with faculty guidance. The next 3 months were crazy. Riley barely had time for his regular classes. He and Thessa worked with counselors from different species to create training modules. They had to figure out how to teach empathy to species who didn't have the concept. How to explain emotional support to beings who processed feelings completely differently than humans. They created guides for recognizing distress across species. Warning signs for the Xian stress. Velkari grief patterns. Quellan anxiety indicators. 53 different species, each with their own emotional languages. 53 students volunteered for the first training session. Then schools on other planets started asking for the curriculum. Then entire planetary education systems wanted it. 6 months after Riley hugged Thessa in that courtyard, the Interspecies Education Council made peer emotional support training mandatory for all galactic academies. Riley's communicator never stopped buzzing. Messages from students across the galaxy thanking him. Parents whose kids had been helped by the program. Even a few government officials expressing gratitude. One message stood out. It was from Jason's father, a high-ranking Drazian military official. Human Riley. In my culture, we do not show weakness. We overcome obstacles alone. I believed this made us strong. Then my son told me how 6 students stopped their exam to help him breathe. How a human risked his own future for my son's well-being. I did not understand. But then I realized, my son did not overcome his panic alone. He overcame it because he was not alone. Perhaps true strength is not isolation. Perhaps it is connection. Thank you for teaching this old Drazian something new. Riley read that message 3 times, his eyes getting blurry. He was sitting in the observation deck, his favorite spot on the station. Through the massive windows, he could see ships arriving from every corner of the galaxy. Each one carrying students, teachers, families. All different. All unique. Thessa found him there, her shell a peaceful blue. Thinking deep human thoughts. Riley laughed. Just thinking how weird this all is. I came here to learn about other species. Instead, I accidentally taught them about hugs. Not just hugs, Thessa corrected. You taught us that protocols serve people, not the other way around. That sometimes the right thing and the allowed thing are different. That compassion matters more than rules. Her shell shifted through several colors. These are not small lessons, Riley. I guess not, Riley admitted. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the ships. On one of those ships, new students were arriving. Students who would enter an academy that was different now. Better now. Because one human couldn't watch someone cry alone. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply care when everyone else walks away. Because in the end, maybe that's what makes humans special. Not their technology or their strength, but their stubborn, inconvenient, beautiful refusal to let anyone suffer alone. Even when the rules say they should. Especially when the rules say they should.